Hi guys, how you doing? Hope you're all well. Now then, in the last video that I put up on YouTube, which is this one about colour spaces, and by the way, it's only had 520 views in 2 weeks. Come on guys, this is really important stuff. I know it sounds boring, but you really do need to understand it. But when I'm talking to you in this video, I do say that I'm going to make another exploring Darktable or version of this, because in this I got one or two things for simple purposes I'll say wrong. I'm not ashamed to admit it, because I didn't quite understand the differences in working with input colour profiles and working profiles, the differences between Darktable and raw therapy. And so big shout out to Todd Pryor, who put a couple of comments on this video, which started me down the track of correcting myself. And then also a big thanks to JD, Jack Desmis, one of the main coders over on Raw Therapy, who's a French guy and doesn't like speaking English. And so big thanks to Wayne Sutton for being the intermediary to do the English to French and French to English translations. And yeah, so big shout out to Wayne, big shout out to Jax, and a big shout out to Todd. So what I'm now going to do is get rid of this, shut down Firefox, and there we go. And so we are here with a completely fresh and nice and virginal, yes, installation of Darktable. And we can't do a lot, can we? Because we haven't got any pictures in it, have we? No. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring some pictures in. So I'm going to go to Import, and I'm going to go to Add to Library. And I don't want anything out of my home or my pictures. The folder I want to bring in is sitting on my desktop. So I'm going to click this little plus icon here, and then I'm going to navigate over to my desktop, and the folder I want is this, RT versus DT. And we're going to click open, and then we'll come down to this panel here where it says folders, RT versus DT. And there are all the files that I'm going to bring in. You can see we've got CR3s, NEF files, CR2 files, we've got a JPEG, we've got a TIFF, and we've also got a RAW file here of a Fuji GFX. Okay, now that will be, seen as it's off a GFX, it will be a Bayer pattern sensor. I've always wanted a Fuji camera, just to have a play with it. But if I was going to have a Fuji camera now, it would be a GFX 100, but I can't afford it. Fuji, if you're listening, yes, send a GFX 100 over to me with a couple of lenses, and I will be waxing lyrical about it. But anyway, I digress. So just while you're over here in the sort of add to library view, we've got these little eyeballs here. You can click one and see what that actual picture is. Hello Hans, this is one of Hans's pictures. And if you wanted to see them all, you could go click the main eyeball at the top, and then you could scroll through and just check to see if you wanted to import them all. I do, and I'm going to go to add to library. And we've got 5 thumbnails per row, so I'm just going to double click there, hit return, and away we go. I hate this Filmstrip. I just don't understand how it works. I really don't. I know it's sort of telling me how many I've got in each year and all that, but no, I just can't be doing with it. So I'll just go Shift Command B, and Shift Command B again, and then Shift Command B again, and that just lets me have my toolbar at the bottom. Come over to the preferences, and in the light table where it's open on this third tab down, you'll see it says for thumbnails use raw file instead of embedded JPEG from size. Don't quite understand that bit. Now, because this is the RAW file of the GFX Fuji camera, and it's a raw file from one of my Patreon members, Tim, and you can see it's in black and white. Therefore, I know Tim shot this with a black and white preset on the back of his Fuji, and so really and truly the raw file will be in colour. So what I'm now looking at is the embedded JPEG. You don't have to do this, but if you want to, you can go to this option here where it says never by default, and you can click it and say always. And then if you close the preferences, you'll see you get this other dialog box. You've changed the settings related to how thumbnails are generated. All cached thumbnails need to be invalidated. Do you want to do that now? You can go and click yes, and you'll see it just says working or more, and there we go. Now we've got that raw file of Tim's GFX in colour. Alrighty, so you can do that if you want to. Whether it makes your computer run slower or not, I suppose it does to a degree, but I can't say that I notice. The other thing I want to do is to open that preferences panel again, and I want to come to processing. Now, when it says auto apply pixel workflow defaults, you want it to say scene referred. It can say display referred or none. It should say scene referred. If it doesn't, put it on scene referred. Auto apply chromatic adaptation defaults, it'll say legacy. Change that to modern. And the only reason I'm doing this is because that's what it recommends you do in the Darktable version of Rawpedia. So there we go. So what I'm now going to do is shut down my preferences, and then I'm going to click on well, I'm not actually. Before I click on a raw file, I'm just going to open this JPEG. So you've got two basic approaches to image workflow. A is import your raw files, process them, and then export them as rasterized sRGB JPEGs for web, social media, or whatever you want. And that is a very, very, very common workflow. I will admit, I quite often use this workflow for wildlife images, where I've shot a great number of raw files, and I'm going through, deleting some, working up some others, and I want to do a sort of batch process and get them up on one of my stock sites, or all of my stock sites for that matter. So this is a very valid workflow, even for a professional photographer. But when you get your sort of landscape type work, or you've got work where you know you're going to have to take it into a raster image processor for masking, be it area masking, zone masking, luminosity masking, and doing lots of dodging and burning, and all sorts of other types of local selections and local adjustments. I have a tendency to go for this longer and more convoluted workflow, where it ostensibly starts off the same, importing raw files, processing them, and then moving the finished raw file over to Photoshop in my case, or other people might move it over to GIMP or whatever, as a 16-bit TIFF in the ProPhotoRGB colour space. And why I say the ProPhotoRGB colour space, go and watch the colour space video. Go on, get it done. You know you need to. For further refined processing, as I've just said, and then saving that image out. If you've got the space on your hard drive, save it with all the entire layer stack with it. So it would be quite a large file, but you save it out and treat it as a sort of an archival image file. And then when you decide what you want to do with it, then what you do is you spawn off a copy of that archival image file, and maybe send it over to Raw Therapy for upscaling, or send it over to Darktable for upscaling if you want to do a big sort of 50-60 inch print from it. or you could send it out as a JPEG, so you're reverting back to this sort of workflow. If you're going to soft proof it for printing, or even if you need to produce a CMYK conversion for commercial sort of web offset printers, though 99 times out of 100 you will actually give them this file and they will do this CMYK conversion because they will be converting it to their house profile. But the main thing about this workflow is that if you go back and watch the colour space video, I changed Darktable's working profile, and I also changed its export profile. And into the former is changed from Linear Rec 2020 to Linear ProPhoto, because ProPhoto is a bigger colour space than Rec 2020, and so you are preserving a few more colours that you potentially capture with your camera than you would be if you worked in Rec 2020. And also, if you export out in ProPhoto for this archival image, you're keeping as much colour spread and colour fidelity in your image as you possibly can, because don't forget, again, if you go and watch the colour space video, ProPhoto holds colours that can be in your image and can be printed on your printer that lie outside the gamut of Rec 2020, Adobe RGB 1998, and obviously sRGB. So if you've bought an expensive desktop printer working with an output of ProPhoto as an output profile, that will sort of allow you to get more bang for your buck from your expensive printer ink paper combos, and also using Linear ProPhotoRGB as your working profile will allow you to handle more of those sort of extreme colours that might be captured by your camera in a particular instance. Anyway, there we go. So that's the tie-in with the colour space video done, and I'm sorry for a bit of a waffle. And so what we'll do now is come to a raw file, and we'll go ahead and make the changes. So the first thing I want to do is to come and click on this little hamburger icon, and it says modules default. I'm going to put it to workflow scenery third, and you can see straight away it does reduce the number of modules that you've got access to. But then I'm going to come to this panel here, which is the active modules, and so what I want to do is first of all change the output colour profile. Now at the minute it's sRGB, and if I click the options you'll notice I haven't got ProPhoto. Right, so this is where we come to the point we need to quit Darktable. You just have to turn it off. And then what I'm going to do is to come to my Finder window, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I've got this folder here called Colour, and it's got two folders in it, in and out, and I did show you how to do this on the previous video. And in the in we've got Adobe RGB 1998, Melissa, ProPhoto, and sRGB Gamma 2.2. We don't really need those. The only real one you want is ProPhoto. But you know, just for expediency's sake, I'm just going to click and copy colour, and so I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to come to my config folder, and within Darktable I'm just going to open the Darktable folder, and we're just going to go edit, and we're going to go paste, and there we go, it's all sorted. So if I now shut that and then come and restart Darktable, and there we go. So I'm now going to reopen this CR2 file with Miguel with his nictating membrane covering his eyes, and if I go now to there I can see I've got ProPhoto. So I've now switched the output profile to ProPhoto. That is gamma corrected ProPhoto, grey gamma 1.8. All right. But what I want to do is I want to do this for every single raw file that I could possibly bring into Darktable. And so because I am who I am, I have lots of raw files from lots of different cameras sent in by people. So at the end of the day, I want to make a module preset that's going to allow it to be applied to every raw file, irrespective of camera make or model. So I'm going to click the hamburger icon where it says presets, and we're going to go store new preset. I'm just going to call this raw, and then we're going to check auto apply. Where you see a % sign, this is wildcard code. So any particular model from any maker with any lens fitted, with any ISO between 0 and that. Jesus, that would look noisy, wouldn't it? Yeah. But we don't want it to apply this preset to TIFFs, which we might bring into Darktable for upsizing with Langsos. All right. So we need to uncheck non-raw. And so we'll click OK. The next thing I'm going to do is come to input color profile, and this is where we make the changes that I did talk about in the latter third or latter half of the color space video, where we were in Critter, right, and looking at different profiles and the gamma curves or native gamma curves of different sorts of profiles. And so what I need to do is change this from linear rec 2020, which is Darktable's default. And if you don't need to do this, if you're not going for that big 16-bit ProPhotoRGB TIFF workflow and the archival workflow, you don't really need to do this. Just bear in mind, I did say that at the outset. But I am going to change this to linear ProPhotoRGB. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to click the little hamburger icon, store new preset, call this one raw as well, click auto apply, wildcard, lovely jubbly, uncheck non-raw, click OK. And then I'm going to come down to the demosaicing tab, and you can see the demosaicing method is RCD. Now, for those of you who've watched a lot of my raw therapy videos, you know I do actually have a tendency to prefer using dual algorithm demosaicing. And so I do use RCD teamed up with bilinear in raw therapy. I used to use it teamed up with VNG4, but then they introduced bilinear. Darktable doesn't have bilinear in combination with RCD, but it does have VNG4. So we'll switch this out to my old raw therapy preferred demosaicing or dual demosaicing algorithm. And all I'm going to do now is click on presets, store new preset, type raw, go in it, auto apply, wildcard 0 to that incredibly high number, and just uncheck non-raw, and we'll click OK. Right, so what we've done now is made changes to 3 of the main modules in Darktable. Now, I always do this because sometimes it does stick and carry over, other times it doesn't. So I'm going to quit Darktable now I've made those changes, and I'm going to restart Darktable. This is me just being a hypochondriac in case it didn't work on the video, because it's always a problem when something doesn't work on a video and you've got to go and, oh God, chop a chunk out and go and get it re-recorded. It's a pain in the backside. So what I'm going to do is just open that image again, and we can just check, yeah, RCD plus VNG4. Input color profile is now at linear ProPhoto, and the output color profile is at ProPhoto. Let's now go and open another image, and of course it's not carried over. So what we can do is come back to Darktable. This is what drives me nuts about Darktable. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. So I'm just going to select all the images and I'm just going to go discard history. And we'll click yes. Thank you very much. Wait for it to all finish working. Spectacular. And now what I'll do is, what will I do? I'll go and open this one, which is the one we were trying to open before. And there we go. Export profile ProPhoto, input color profile linear ProPhoto, and demosaicing is at RCD plus VNG4. Let's go and click on a NEF file. And there we go. That's RCD plus VNG4. Input color profile is now linear ProPhoto, output ProPhoto. So there you go, that's worked. Let's go and open a Nikon Z raw file. Yes, ProPhoto. Checking through linear ProPhoto, demosaicing RCD. And let's just go and check a CR3 file. Steve Kaluski's Tony Owl. And there we go, RCD plus VNG4. Linear ProPhoto, and output profile is ProPhoto. Spectaculari. So there you go, guys. That is how to set up Darktable. If you want to use Darktable, I'll say with Photoshop or GIMP, and you want to maintain this maximum 16-bit ProPhotoRGB workflow, and that is the best way to set Darktable up. Okay guys, hope you found that useful, hope you found it interesting. I will be doing more videos on Darktable. I've sort of got my head around quite a few more things now, and so look out for those in the future. And until then, stay safe, stay well, keep taking the pictures, and don't do anything I wouldn't do, so it gives you plenty of scope. And if you look at the date, it's Thursday the 16th of March. That means yesterday was my birthday. Yes, it was. 64 years old. Would you believe it? Jesus. And you know what? The world, just every year, the world seems to be run by younger and younger children. Yes, one day the 3-year-olds will take over, I'm certain. Okay. All right, guys and gals, stay safe, stay well, keep taking those pictures, and I'll speak to you soon. Tooroo.